A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. Emily Grierson lives in a big squarish frame house that had once been white, decorated with cupolas and spires and scrolled balconies in the heavily lightsome style of the 70s, set on what had once been her most select street. Miss Emily had been a tradition, a duty and a care, a sort of hereditary obligation upon the town. The mayor, Colonel Sir Torres, who made the rule that no black woman should appear on the streets without an apron, remitted Emily's taxes because of a story he made about her father lending money to the town, and this is their way of repaying him.
As newer leaders took office, they weren't happy with the special treatment Miss Emily received. They sent her a tax notice, but she didn't respond. The new mayor even offered to send a car for her to discuss it, but she replied in a letter saying she no longer went out, enclosing the tax notice without saying anything. The town's board of aldermen called a special meeting and visited Miss Emily's house, which had been deserted for years. They were led into a dim, dusty hall by an old black servant. The parlor was filled with heavy, worn-out furniture, and a crayon portrait of Miss Emily's father stood on display.
They rose when she entered, a small, fat woman in black, with a thin gold chain descending to her waist and vanishing into her belt, leaning on an ebony cane with a tarnished gold head. Her skeleton was small and spare. Perhaps that was why what would have been merely plumpness in another was obesity in her. She looked bloated, like a body long submerged in motionless water, and of that pallid hue. Her eyes, lost in the fatty ridges of her face, looked like two small pieces of coal pressed into a lump of dough as they moved from one face to another while the visitors stated their errand.
She did not ask them to sit. She just stood in the door and listened quietly.
I have no taxes in Jefferson. Colonel Sartoris explained it to me. Perhaps one of you can gain access to the city records and satisfy yourselves. But we have. We are the city authorities, Miss Emily. Didn't you get a notice from the sheriff signed by him? I received a paper, yes. Perhaps he considers himself the sheriff. I have no taxes in Jefferson. But there is nothing on the books to show that. You see, we must go by the... See Colonel Sartoris. I have no taxes in Jefferson. But Miss Emily... See Colonel Sartoris. I have no taxes in Jefferson. Toby, show these gentlemen out. Colonel Sartoris had been dead for almost 10 years.
Miss Emily vanquished the townspeople just as she had defeated their fathers 30 years before regarding a smell issue. This happened 2 years after her father passed away and her sweetheart, the one we believed would marry her, left her. After these events, she rarely went out and people hardly saw her. Only the young black man who worked for her was seen coming and going from her house with a market basket.
Maybe that's the reason why it smells. Ugh, just as if any man, could keep a kitchen properly.
Emily's neighbor, an 80-year-old woman, complained to the mayor, Judge Stevens, about the smell.
But what will you have me do about it, madam?
Why send her word to stop it? Isn't there a law?
Oh, I'm sure that won't be necessary. It's probably just a snake or a rat that black servant of hers killed in the yard. I'll speak to him about it.
We really must do something about it. I'll be the last one in the world to bother Miss Emily, but we've got to do something.
That night, the Board of Aldermen met. 3 gray beards and 1 younger man, a member of the rising generation. It's simple enough. Send her word to have her place cleaned up. Give her a certain time to do it in. And if she don't... Damn it, sir! Will you accuse a lady to her face of smelling bad? And so the next night, after midnight, four men secretly approached Miss Emily's house, behaving like burglars.
They spread lime around the cellar and outbuildings to combat a bad smell. Miss Emily observed them from a window without moving. After a week or two, the smell went away. That was when people had begun to feel really sorry for her. None of the young men were quite good enough for Miss Emily and such. When her father died, it got about that the house was all that was left to her, and in a way, people were glad. At last, they could pity Miss Emily, being left alone, and a pauper she had become humanized. The day after his death, all the ladies prepared to call at the house and offer condolence and aid, as is our custom. She told them that her father was not dead. She did that for 3 days, with the ministers calling on her and the doctors trying to persuade her to let them dispose of the body.
Just as they were about to resort to law and force, she broke down, and they buried her father quickly. We did not say she was crazy then. We remembered all the young men her father had driven away, and we knew that with nothing left, she would have to cling to that which had robbed her, as people will. She was sick for a long time. When we saw her again, her hair was cut short, making her look like a girl, with a vague resemblance to those angels in colored church windows, sort of tragic and serene. Around the time of her father's death, the town began paving the sidewalks. The construction brought in workers, including Homer Barron, a Yankee, a big, dark, ready man with a big voice and eyes lighter than his face. He became well known in town, often seen laughing and socializing. Eventually, he and Miss Emily started spending time together, seen driving in the yellow-wheeled buggy around town on Sunday afternoons.
Of course, a Grierson would not think seriously of a northerner, a day laborer.
The older people said that even grief could not cause a real lady to forget noblesse oblige without calling it noblesse oblige.
Poor Emily. Her kinsfolk should come to her.
Poor Emily. Do you suppose it's really so?
Of course it is. What else could? Poor Emily.
Miss Emily had relatives in Alabama, but they had a feud over an inheritance, leading to no contact between them. Despite rumors about her downfall, she still carried herself with dignity, almost demanding recognition as the last of the Grierson family.
Like when she bought the rat poison, the arsenic, over a year after people began sympathizing with her while her female cousins were visiting. I want some poison.
Yes, Miss Emily. What kind? For rats and such, I'd
I
recommend.
want the best you have. I don't care what kind.
They'll kill anything up to an elephant. But what you want
Arsenic. Is that a good one?
Of course, if that's what you want. But the law requires you to tell what you are going to use it for.
Miss Emily stared at the druggist until he looked away.
Then he gave her the arsenic and left.
The package was delivered by a black boy, and when she opened it, she noticed it was labeled "for rats" underneath the skull and bone symbol. The townspeople initially speculated that Miss Emily might kill herself, but later they thought she would marry Homer Barron. However, Homer himself had remarked that he was not a marrying man. He liked men, and it was known that he drank with the younger men in the Elks Club. They pitied Miss Emily as they passed on Sunday afternoon in the glittering buggy, with her head high, and Homer with his hat cocked and a cigarette in his teeth, reins and whip in a yellow glove. Some started criticizing their relationship, considering it disgraceful and a bad influence. Eventually, the Baptist minister, at the urging of some ladies, visited Miss Emily, but the details of their conversation remained secret. After his visit, Miss Emily and Homer continued their outings, prompting the minister's wife to contact Miss Emily's relatives in Alabama. Miss Emily's relatives returned to live with her, and the townspeople anticipated developments. They assumed Miss Emily and Homer Barron would marry when she ordered personalized silver items and men's clothing. When Homer disappeared, they believed he left to prepare for their marriage or to let Miss Emily deal with her relatives. As expected, her relatives left soon after, and Homer returned to town, seen entering Miss Emily's house one evening. And that was the last we saw of Homer Barron and of Miss Emily for some time. When we next saw Miss Emily, she had grown fat and her hair was turning gray. During the next few years, it grew grayer and grayer until it attained an even pepper and salt iron gray. Daily, monthly, yearly, we watched the black servant grow grayer and more stooped, going in and out with a market basket. Miss Emily continued to live in isolation, refusing to claim her tax notices. She fell ill and passed away quietly in her house, with only an old black servant attending to her. Her death occurred in a downstairs room, lying in an old bed surrounded by shadows, symbolizing her solitude and the passage of time. They held the funeral on the second day, with the town coming to look at Miss Emily beneath a mass of bought flowers. They waited until Miss Emily was decently in the ground before they opened a room above stairs which no one had seen in 40 years.
The room prepared for a wedding was shrouded in a musty tomb-like atmosphere. Everything was adorned with faded rose colors and delicate crystal, but covered in dust and neglect. A collar and tie lay on a surface, leaving behind a faint mark when lifted. A suit was neatly folded on a chair, accompanied by shoes and socks as if recently removed. The man himself lay in the bed. For a long while we just stood there, looking down at the profound and fleshless grin. Then we noticed that in the second pillow was the indentation of a head. One of us lifted something from it, and leaning forward, that faint and invisible dust dry and acrid in the nostrils, we saw a long strand of iron gray hair.